We are going to try and share tonight with you something that is the most exciting thing I've ever been involved with in my career. This thing called Children's First. I suspect a number of you came out tonight thinking that's a catchy phrase at least, and I wonder what it's about. And hopefully when we're done this evening, you will tell us what it's about, because we have very few answers. But we know from all of the people we've been talking to, something isn't right in our culture. Something is going wrong. And together we have the belief, excuse me, that we can make it right. And we have tremendous support from a lot of different places. On one of these charts, maybe it's back farther, there's a resolution by the city council and one by the school board endorsing this 100%. And we have some of those elected officials here this evening. As a matter of fact, probably, in case I don't recognize everyone, maybe if we could just have the elected officials. I see Gail Dorfman here and I saw Ron Latz here. Do you want to just stand up so they know who you are, Gail? And Ron was around here someplace right behind. Jim Rhodes, our representative, is in the back. He was with us on Tuesday night as well. Steve Kelly was with us on Tuesday night. And 5 of our board members were with us on Tuesday night, so I'm not sure. Are you pointing to someone else? Oh, our 4th ward. I have not even met Robert Ward yet, so nice to meet you. These elections go so quickly. So on behalf, thanks for coming to try and find out what this thing is all about. I'd like to start with reading a quote in the sense of the need as perceived by a lot of different people. It's a quote from the National Commission on Children out of Washington, D.C., and it reads as follows: "At every age, among all races and income groups, and in communities nationwide, many children are in jeopardy. They grow up in families whose lives are in turmoil. Their parents are too stressed and too drained. Some are unloved, ill-tended to. Others are unsafe at home and in their neighborhoods. And often they lack the rudiments of basic health care. And almost always, they lack hope in dreams." Marian Wright Edelman, in one of the finest books, if you want to buy a fine book, this is one of the best books I can recommend to you, The Measure of Our Success. She's the founder and president of the Children's Defense Fund. Now she happens to be a very good friend of Hillary. They were friends before he became president. See, I read the newspaper too. But it's an excellent book, and we have a couple of quotes on these big posters that I use all the time because it is so powerful. Right up here it talks about one of her beliefs, which I believe totally. It must become un-American for any child to grow up poor, unsafe, uneducated, or unloved. So a basic core of that is this belief system, because as you see up in front, this Children's First Partnership, when we started this over a year ago, one of the beliefs, it's an old African proverb, we can't take credit for it, it reads, "It takes an entire village to raise a child." And so on that basic core belief, what is it that we're up to? What we're really up to is to build a community, the mission, to build a community which puts children first in order to create a better tomorrow for everyone. That is it. That is the core. The question that's going to be before you, and you're not coming out to hear me lecture to you this evening. When I'm done, you're actually going to go to work, because you have to help figure out how are we going to create and build a better community, and so in the end, it's better for everybody. When we talk about Children's First, we're not talking about at-risk kids. We're talking about every single young person in this community, from birth to 18. Everybody. That is a gigantic challenge, but one I think we can master, because it has to become this quote from Marian. And then another quote from Marian, and you can't read it from where you are: "The greatest threat to our national security in future comes from no external enemy, but from the enemy within, in our loss of strong moral, family, and community values." How do we go about pulling that all? Woo, somebody wants somebody. There it is. If you want a little more, there's another very good book that I just read. It's not as powerful as Marion Wright Edelman's book, but it's called Every Child Counts. And in there, I'd like to just read a couple of quotes to you. Why you need to care. These are all our children. We will all profit by or pay for whatever they become. That's it. So what is happening to our children? The quality of childhood is deteriorating, and every caring American knows something is wrong. That's probably why you're here. The question then is, how are we going to build a community that makes a difference? For example, 1 in 4 children under age 6 lives in poverty in this country. Half of the people who become poor each year in America are the children. Teen suicides have tripled in the past 30 years. Right now, this I don't even want to believe. Right now, the United States of America locks up a greater percentage of their children than any country in the developed world. And we are going to be on the pathway of spending $22 billion to do more of that. Something is wrong. How are you going to turn that around? I do not have the answer. You have the answer. And tonight, we're going to try and get that from you. And you might say, well, how did this all happen? It's one of the most beautiful stories I can tell you, because it tells you that you can make a difference. I belong to a Rotary Club here in St. Louis Park, and they've been bugging me to give a speech. And so a year ago, I gave a speech about public education. Is it making it or is it not? And I took the premise that the problem is that the partnership has broken. The partnership among all of us is what's broken. And that we happen to live in a world of indulgences. And we've put our children someplace down the ladder, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th. And my proposition is that we better move them up to number 1, or the indulgences that we all engage in are going to continue the path of destruction. And I don't have to tell you what's been on the news recently. Something has to change. So I gave this speech, and it's the only speech in my life I've ever given where I had a standing ovation. And I felt really good, so I went back to the office, and I didn't get much work done the rest of the day because I was just pumped up and said, well, you know, if things are that good, you know, don't have much to worry about. Except the next morning, a retired Rotarian walked in my office. And if you know Elaine, that's not easy to do. And he said, Carl, we've got to do something about that. I said, Wayne, I don't know what to do about it. I just know we've got the problem. He said, I'm serious. You don't understand. And he took out his checkbook, and he wanted to write me a check. And so I said, Wayne, I don't want your check because I don't know what to do with it. And he said, well, but we have to do something. I said, well, if I took your check, I just have to put it in the bank because I wouldn't know how to spend it. Wisely, I know how to spend money, but wisely on this topic because I didn't have the foggiest notion where to go. And then another gentleman joined him by the name of Gil Broad from the club. And the two of them started bugging me all last summer. We got to do something. We got to do something. I said, fine, but I don't know what to do. And so as a good leader and educator, I said, if it's that bad, we'll form a committee, and we'll study this problem for a long time until they would quit bugging me. Well, we got some people together, and what you see here is a result of some work from that committee. So when the committee came up with this notion to build a community which puts children first in order to create a better tomorrow for everyone, we started saying, well, how do we do that? We didn't have the foggiest notion how to do that. And we met 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months, and it hit us one day that we should call the fellow you're going to meet tonight, whose name is Peter Benson, who heads up the Search Institute. The Search Institute is an organization that their livelihood and their calling in life is to do research about children throughout the world. And so I called Peter, and we had lunch together, and I said, Peter, this is my problem. You know more about this. I know we got the problem. Do you want to be part of this? And he couldn't have been more excited of wanting to join up. because they have been doing a lot of research on this topic, but they didn't have any vehicle in reference to the research. And so the first stage was, where in this country, Peter Benson and Search Institute that does all this research, can tell us how to do this thing. And so then I called Gil in and Wayne. I said, if you want to write a check, you can write us a check and we'll hire them and we'll try to figure this out. And so each of them wrote a $5,000 check, which I've never seen that done either before. I mean, they didn't make any bones about it. They just wrote the check. And so Peter and his organization for 2 or 3 months researched the countryside trying to find a model. And there are lots of models out there that basically work with handicapped kids or at-risk kids or preschool kids and all the rest, but something that we were trying to do, he couldn't find a model for. So Peter came to me and said, let's create one. I said, wonderful. Let's create a model to try to build a better community for putting children first so that it's good for everybody. And so we decided how we'd go about doing that, and now I needed $40,000. And I've never raised $40,000. I never had raised $10,000. And so we went to General Mills, and Retha King gave us $20,000. And my Rotary Club gave me $20,000. And so that's what we're up to right now, is trying to find out what is it that people say that would build a better community for all the children in this country. Not just a few, but for all of them. One of the most exciting things I've been a part of in this adventure is knowing that the school district cannot do this alone. I don't know how many of you have ever heard Jim Rainier, the ex-CEO of Honeywell. He just retired. He addressed our faculty, and I've been in this company a lot in the last few years. And his point of view is, if you expect the schools to do this, you're going to wait a long, long time. It is a community effort, which goes back to the proverb of it takes a whole village to raise a community. So we went and took that very seriously. So what we have done is to form a steering committee. We have a rabbi and a minister and a couple of judges and a chief of police and a city manager and the mayor and a school board member and a group of community parents and some business people, and that's that thing called the steering committee. And we've met now twice. Prior to that, we had the school board's resolution, the city resolution, and then we went to Methodist Hospital and Park Nicollet Clinic and asked if they wanted to be a part, and they want to be a part of this. And then I met with the religious community and asked and tried to explain what we're up to, and they want to be a part of it. And when we were done with the religious community, it was one of the most interesting meetings I've ever been to. They said, now what do we do, Carl? And I said, I don't know. And if I did know, I wouldn't tell you. Because the vision is only as good as you buy it. Either it becomes part of you or it's no good. And so after tonight, if you can't feel something inside of you that makes a difference, that you think you can make a difference, this isn't going to work. And so the religious community right now is struggling with what is the vision for the synagogues and the churches of this community that will make a difference in building a better community for everybody, where we put children first and ourselves second. What our plan is that once we have all these meetings, Peter Benson and his staff and I are interviewing about 25 different focus groups, along with these 2 town meetings, along with a survey that's being done in the community. When we get all that data, we will put together a strategic plan and then bring it back to all of these groups and say, what part of it do you want? Because one of the things we're trying to learn as a school district is this thing at the bottom, which talks about relationship assisting and not directing. School people are typically really good at directing and not very good at assisting. So the strategic plan will be shared, and we'll ask people, what part of it do you want? And whatever part they want, what we are hoping for then, that they will all interact with one another and make a difference in this community. Now, no one's ever done that, and certainly I have never done that. And so somehow we're trying to figure out how do we hold that all together. But our vision right now is, and this vision only came to us about 10 days ago, is once we share with all the different people in the community what part do they want to play, and we assist them. Then they commit to say, we will do this part. And the second part of the commitment will be 12 months later, you have to report what you accomplished. And we're going to have a citywide celebration where we give publicly the report card. Did we make a difference in building a better community? Now, there are two ways you can try to figure out, do we make a difference? One is, we just feel good. I mean, we got involved, we got engaged, we believe in this thing, and it must work. And the problem with too much research and education is that's what happens. We don't measure it. One of the great strengths that Peter Benson's organization brings to us, he has put together a survey done with about 250,000 students in America today, including all the students in St. Louis Park, grades 6 through 12, measuring what he refers to as the asset base. He has developed 30 assets, and the research would suggest that if students would have about 26 of them, the chances of those young people becoming very active adults in a good civil way, Scott Peck calls it civility to one another, things would work out. In America, including St. Louis Park, the average is children typically have about 16 of them, and not the 30. We will repeat that survey every year as a hardcore measurement. Did we make a difference? And you notice I didn't say us as a school district, I said we as a community. There's a big difference. I will guarantee you failure if you will not become engaged. If we don't become engaged, we would have given you some free coffee and cookies. They're not bad either, by the way. And we've enjoyed ourselves tonight. That's all that'll happen. I will guarantee you success if you will become engaged, and we can hold this consortium together because we believe that we have to make a difference. Marion Wright Edelman goes on to say in one of these quotes someplace around here, the price we pay to live on this earth is to serve other people. Pretty simple stuff. Scott Peck, who I'm reading a great deal recently, is talking about